who accidentally caused someone's death. What happened, and how did it impact your life? In 1995, when I was a small child, my parents took me to a roller skating rink. I was pushing myself to see how fast I could go, and I accidentally bumped into a woman who was pushing her son's wheelchair. She lost her balance and leaned forward to steady herself. Unfortunately, she fell forward, causing her paraplegic son to be tipped face first onto the ground at several miles per hour. I remember his neck snapping back to the side and some of his teeth scattering across the floor. Sadly, he did not survive. For years, I repressed this memory until my mid-20s, when the death of a close friend brought it back vividly. I feel deep sorrow for what happened, and even more so for the boy's mother, who likely feels responsible for her son's death. I carry a sense of personal responsibility for the chain of events that led to this tragic accident, though I understand it was a freak occurrence no one could have predicted. I don't know what happened afterward, as this was over 25 years ago. Hope that anyone reading this understands that life is complicated, accidents happen, and nothing is guaranteed. For anyone facing a similar situation, it's important to remember that such rare accidents cannot be foreseen, even if it feels otherwise. Don't be too hard on yourself, and seek therapy if needed. For me, I didn't realize how much this incident was affecting me until I addressed it through therapy. This happened more than 20 years ago, so the statute of limitations has passed. I think I may have run someone over. I was driving to a school dance through heavy fog when I felt something that felt like running over large branches. I kept driving because where I'm from, it's common to find branches on the road. Later, they found a body on that road. I don't remember all the details, but the man was reportedly heavily intoxicated, dragged to a remote area, and left on the road. His friends were charged with murder. From what I understood, they wanted him dead and tried to cover it up as an accident. Authorities publicly asked for information, but I stayed silent out of ignorance and fear. I thought I might be charged with manslaughter since I had just turned 18. In my area, involuntary manslaughter can lead to up to 10 years in prison, and at that time, law enforcement was strict. Later, I learned the man's body had been run over multiple times. As far as I know, no one came forward, and no one I knew was arrested. I also know others from my area took that same road that night. A similar incident involved a cousin of mine. He was the victim in this case. He went to a party where some people who disliked him showed up, beat him, and dragged him onto the highway, knocking him unconscious. A teenage girl driving home from a school event hit him. She was never charged, and I believe rightly so. The woman who hosted the party was investigated for contributing to the delinquency of minors be serving alcohol. The attackers were questioned, but there weren't enough witnesses to press charges. They did brag about the attack afterward. I feel awful for his mother. When she was young, both her parents died in a head-on collision caused by drunk drivers who crossed into their lane. This happened in the 1970s, and the drivers were never charged. She and her 6 siblings were separated and sent to live with various relatives. Years later, she thought she was in a happy marriage, but her husband left her for another woman. Shortly after that, her son died. After his death, she and her estranged husband reconciled, possibly through shared grief. 6 months later, he died suddenly from a massive heart attack while they were at home. She was only 48 when she moved to the opposite side of the country. From what I understand, she's doing well now. But that poor woman experienced some truly tragic events. At our school cafeteria, Peanuts were accidentally spilled into the nut-free lunch on a Saturday. A friend of mine, who wasn't very close to me but someone I was still friendly with, was allergic. He placed his order without knowing about the peanuts. He wasn't great at organizing, and nobody knew about his allergy because it hadn't caused any problems before. We thought he simply disliked peanuts and other nuts. When he started choking, none of us realized it was an allergic reaction. Unfortunately, he couldn't be saved. I don't know all the details since I wasn't at the hospital with him. The cafeteria faced legal action, and the whole class still struggles to get over it. In January or February of 2009, I was in Puerto Rico. One night, after drinking heavily, we were leaving a Church's Chicken in a rough neighborhood called Los Angeles. We were joking around with some women on the street when a blonde, pregnant woman in her mid-20s, about 5'3", ran up to us. She said, "Thank God you speak English. My car ran out of gas at the station nearby. My card isn't working and my husband isn't answering his phone." We stopped to talk and debated whether it was a scam or if she really needed help. We decided to be kind and each gave her some money. Then we caught the next bus and left. The next morning, the police contacted us about an incident near the bus stop. The woman never made it back to her car. Witnesses said they saw us give her money, and as soon as we left, she was grabbed by some men and beaten to death. So, by simply trying to be decent for once, I ended up indirectly involved in a woman's death. It's a terrible thing to happen, but please know it was not your fault. The attackers weren't after money. She would have given it up immediately. They did it because they are cruel people. Don't blame yourself. Honestly, I don't feel responsible for her death. But the what-ifs, like what if the bus had been late? Or what if we had walked her to her car? Those thoughts troubled me for a long time. I also knew a guy from another high school who, when he was 17, accidentally killed a girl on his way to school. He was one of the kindest kids you could meet, and I never thought he could hurt anyone. So the girl who was 15 was crossing the road to catch her bus on a foggy morning. His 1970s Ford Bronco had a broken defroster and non-functioning windshield wipers, so he didn't see her and hit her. He ended up serving 6 years in prison. I spoke to him about 6 months after he got out. He told me he still can't live with the fact that he took someone's life. It haunts him every day, and he suffers from severe PTSD. He is still working on getting help to manage it. It's heartbreaking to hear the pain in his voice when he says, "I never wanted to hurt someone with their whole future ahead of them." I don't know how people cope with the guilt of killing someone, even if it's accidental. It's painful to hear how deeply it still affects him. I truly feel for him. When I was 17, a 9-year-old boy suddenly ran across the road at night in light rain. I'm 60 now, but I still remember him running and the sound of the impact clearly. He was less than 10 feet away. I had no chance to stop or avoid hitting him. He died under my car. Was found down at fault in the incident. I was driving below the speed limit. My car was in good condition, and my windshield wipers were on. 3 witnesses in my car confirmed this. I drove home from the scene because it was clear the boy should not have been out at night, and I was driving carefully. Yet, despite that, I still ended up killing a child. I will never forget that moment of impact, but I have lived my life without guilt and have moved on. I will say, however, that I now drive much slower than most people on the road. I may have saved a little girl a few years ago because I was driving under the speed limit when she suddenly ran across the road. I'm not sure what to say about your friend. He clearly feels guilt for his choice to drive while impaired. I know he didn't intend to harm anyone, but deciding to drive blind comes with serious consequences. He paid a heavy price. I truly hope he can move past it, though I understand it will be difficult. It's something you never forget. Even after 43 years, I still see it as if it happened yesterday. I can't imagine how I'd cope if it had been my fault. Probably, I wouldn't be talking right now. I just hope your friend finds the help he needs. This wasn't my direct experience, but I once lived in a rough neighborhood. One day, a friend called me, saying some guys had been following him and he was scared. He wanted to stop by my place before walking home, which was about a mile or two away. He asked me to meet him so he wouldn't have to walk alone. I told him he was imagining things and being paranoid. Unfortunately, he wasn't. He was beaten to death after resisting a mugging. I was shocked by how selfish I'd been and felt depressed for about a year after. Now, if any friend asks for help, no matter how small the problem, I'm always there for them. A few years back, a friend of a friend committed accidental murder. He was blackout drunk and ended up killing his pregnant girlfriend, who also had a 2-year-old daughter. Apparently, they argued that night, and then he went to sleep. The next morning, he found her unconscious and bleeding on the floor. He called his mother first and then the police, admitting he had done something terrible. He is now serving a life sentence. Many of his former friends sent hateful messages on Facebook, but I didn't join in. I knew he grew up in a broken home and turned himself in, so I didn't want to add to his pain. As far as I know, the 2-year-old is being cared for by the girlfriend's parents. I feel so awful for that child. When I was younger, one of my sister's ex-boyfriends decided to shoot up our apartment door. He fired 9 shots, mostly missing everyone inside our 3-bedroom apartment in a tough part of South Phoenix. My sister was there with her new boyfriend. She grabbed the gun as he left through the window and started firing back. Then I heard a thud. She had fallen to the ground while the guy outside shouted insults. I picked up the gun, went to the barred window near our front door, aimed, and fired. The attacker fell and didn't get up. The incident was ruled self-defense. My mom wasn't home, and I didn't even know my sister was there with someone. I just woke up to all the chaos. I don't think about it much now, and I don't feel guilty. Being a Phoenix native, I've heard stories like this before, maybe even on the news. Sounds like you've had a tough life, but you did the right thing. I wouldn't say I had a rough childhood, but I realized early on that I had to mature quickly. My mom only came around to pay the rent and eat the food I made. For that, I'm thankful she kept a roof over our heads. But when it came to being a mother, she was absent. My sister, the one in that story, struggled with drugs and men. She had her first child at 15 and had a total of 9 kids, 1 every year. I became their caretaker starting at age 10. I only cried about this to my wife 20 years later. Good God, Phoenix can be a harsh place. So, how am I now? I'm 32, with 3 kids I love dearly, a wife of 10 years, and a decent upper-lower middle-class job in finance. It's not a bad life. Most of my therapy has been about dealing with my dad leaving when I was 7 and blaming me for it. My mom. I've worked through a lot. Most of my mental struggles come from wanting to give my wife and kids the stability I never had growing up. I wouldn't say my childhood was rough, but I realized early that I had to grow up fast. My mom only showed up to pay the rent and eat whatever I made for dinner. For that, I'm thankful. She did provide a roof over our heads, but when it came to actually being a mom, she wasn't there. My sister, the one in this story, got involved with drugs and men. She had her first child at 15 and kept having kids every year after that until she had 9. I became their caretaker when I was just 10. I only cried about all of this to my wife 20 years later. I know it's not directly my fault, but I still carry some guilt. On New Year's Eve 2007, one of my best friends was supposed to come over. We had a small disagreement, and he decided not to come. That night, he and his pregnant girlfriend were killed by a drunk driver. He was only 18, and she was 20. She had a 2-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. New Year's has been hard for me ever since. I can't enjoy it, because the memory is always there. Once, after my dad dropped me off at high school, he went missing for about 10 hours. The drive from my house to school is through the countryside. On the way home, my mom and I passed by, his car parked near the road, but I didn't notice it. He died from heat exhaustion 7 years ago, and it's still painful knowing that if I had seen his car, maybe he would have survived. The worst moment was when my phone rang, and the caller ID showed his number. For a brief moment, I felt relief, thinking he was okay. But it was just a firefighter telling us they had found him. How is this your fault? If you had paid more attention during the drive, maybe you would have seen the car. Sure, but it's not like you could have prevented something huge like 9/11 by being more aware. Guilt isn't always logical or fair. My boyfriend had severe depression for most of his life. We started arguing, so I went to stay at my mom's house. He had recently bought a gun, and I didn't get rid of it. When I came back a few days later, I found he had shot himself. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for not removing the gun. I don't think that means you caused his death. I understand your feelings, but this wasn't your fault. If there hadn't been a gun, something else might have happened. A friend of mine accidentally killed a man crossing the street with his son. The son was behind him and was unharmed, but the man died right in front of his child. My friend was driving through an intersection on a green light. There was a semi-truck in the turning lane, which blocked his view. The man was crossing when he shouldn't have been. Because of the truck, my friend couldn't see them, and the man was hit, dead on. My friend was emotionally shaken and seemed off ever since. When I asked about it once, he said it wasn't just about killing the man, who was technically wrong, but more about the son witnessing his father's death. He never talks about it now, and it's clear it still haunts him. He just wants to move on. Both my in-laws have accidentally killed people while working for the railroad. Even though it was unavoidable, it still affects them deeply. Recently, my mother-in-law, who works for the Minneapolis commuter rail, noticed someone sitting near the tracks. She thought nothing of it since people often hang around there. Later that day, her colleague hit and killed someone on the tracks. The man decided to walk in front of the train. When I trained to become an engineer, they told us it's not a question of if you'll hit someone, but when. Railroad companies have grief counselors to help workers cope. I've heard advice like, don't make eye contact to soften the impact, but honestly, I still don't know how I'll handle it if or when it happens. I didn't directly cause it, but I trained a man the wrong way at work once. He was cleaning industrial printing rollers with acetone near a UV light. A machine suddenly turned on, splashing acetone onto him and the light. The light sparked, and he caught fire. He ran and tried to roll on the ground, but it took 2 fire extinguishers to put out the flames. He suffered burns over 92% of his body and was in a coma for a month. When he woke up, his heart and lungs had failed, mainly due to breathing in the flames. After that, I told the company, forget this job. I either wanted a raise or to be laid off. His family eventually received close to $1 million from workers' comp and insurance. Once, trapped in the Alamo during a conflict, I shot a young boy who snuck in with water for us. I can't forget it. But I did what I thought was right. I didn't know if he was carrying a bomb or water. The situation forced my reaction. It wasn't who I am. Please try to forgive yourself. Taking another life isn't your solution. In 2001, I accidentally killed a close friend. I injected her with heroin, which ended her life. She stopped breathing in her sleep from a mix of asthma and being too high. I was charged with criminally negligent homicide, later reduced to delivery of a controlled substance. It's something that has haunted me ever since. Did I recover from it? Yes, I haven't touched that stuff in years. I know this might be late and probably won't be seen, but I have to share. I was 15, my parents divorced, living with my mom, visiting my dad on weekends. My dad suffered from depression due to his divorce and strained relationship with my sisters. He was a paramedic, a job he loved, but he had to deliver tragic news to families, which affected him deeply. One weekend, I canceled the visit with a weak excuse. Later, I found out his girlfriend was cheating, and everything fell apart. 2 years later, he took his own life. I still regret not going to his place and not stopping him. Once, I was driving an armored vehicle when a minivan crossed into my lane. Instead of braking or swerving into someone's small house, I tried to cut into the left lane and onto an open field. I hit the van head-on. My friend, in the passenger seat, hit his head on the windshield and went unconscious in my lap. I thought he was dead. I stopped the vehicle, checked on him, then ran a few blocks while calling 911 to report the accident location. When I returned, the woman in the van was crushed inside. A year or two later, I was charged with negligent homicide and served time in jail. I wish it hadn't happened, but she was driving home from work, and I was driving to work. It was just an accident. It doesn't affect my daily life much. I also killed a few people during my time in Afghanistan, but those were not accidental. How was this your fault if the van crossed into your lane? The accident report showed both of us were in the middle of the road. Negligent homicide. Do you mean involuntary manslaughter? No, I was charged with third-degree negligent homicide. How did you become an officer after being an inmate? Doesn't that usually cause problems? Normally, yes, but I wasn't actually an officer. I was on active duty when I went to jail, and I was granted leave because of the situation. The military cleared me of any wrongdoing before the civilian courts charged me. There was a girl a year behind me at an all-girls private school who didn't have many friends and was very shy. Some of my friends and I were in the same after-school makeup club as her. She was a sweet girl, but she wore a lot of makeup every day. Honestly, she wasn't great at applying it. A lot of girls struggled with that. But she was especially quiet and didn't stand up for herself, which made her an easy target for ridicule. No one really knew her well, so people called her names behind her back. My friends gave her nicknames like Cake Face and Robot Girl because of her very thin, rigid figure and the thick layers of makeup she wore. I never took part in the bullying until my best friend did, and I would laugh along when she shouted "Cake Face" down. the hallway. I never said anything because the girl would just smile and walk away. I always assumed she had a good group of friends somewhere else, and because of that, the bullying didn't seem to get to her. She was always kind and always smiled. After that year, me and a few friends were kicked out of the school for something unrelated, but the bullying continued, perpetuated by girls who were more popular and had more reach. It got much crueler than I ever imagined, and it all started with those names my friends had called her, and my silence while laughing along. One day, the girl walked into the woods with her dad's shotgun and took her own life. I had always thought she wasn't affected because she smiled so much and was kind to everyone, even those who bullied her. Looking back, I don't think it was directly my fault, but I do take responsibility for not speaking up and stopping the bullying. I feel terrible for playing a part in creating the nicknames that tormented such a sweet girl until she made that decision. It's been a while, but I'm still sorry, and I think I always will be. I never really understood how bad it was. If I had taken a moment to step back and think, I might have realized how awful things must have been for her. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't directly cause it, but maybe I could have stopped it. My parents were in a volatile separation for about 6 months, and it got physical one day. My dad went to jail, then stayed with my grandma, while my mom stayed in the house until September. She had gotten a restraining order, but later rescinded it. Then she moved out. My dad was deeply depressed during this time. Maybe he was hoping they would work things out, but she had already started seeing someone else. One Christmas, I had the courage to show up at the wake of someone I knew. That night I was out with a friend and her mom. When I came back, the house was completely dark. No one answered the door or the phone. The next morning I found out why. My mom had apparently come over to get some cookware to cook that boyfriend a meal. My dad, already deeply depressed, just lost it. He shot my mother to death and then killed himself. I was 8 years old. I was out with a friend, sleeping next door, while my parents were dying. I still haven't forgiven myself for being there. Maybe it wouldn't have happened if I were home. It's almost 4 a.m., and even after all these years, I'm sitting here sobbing. I hate Christmas now, and it's even worse since my grandma, who always called me every year on that day to make sure I was okay, passed away in January. God damn it. Where I live, every time something like this happens, the dad kills the kids too. Don't be so hard on yourself. You. I appreciate it, kind internet stranger. My grandma always tried to tell me that too, but sometimes I still struggle to believe it.